The Orion Concorde's central chamber was unlike anything Reyna Cross had ever seen. It was a vast hall of polished metal and shimmering lights, suspended high above a city that stretched beyond the horizon. Leaders and warriors from hundreds of civilizations milled about, each showcasing the pinnacle of their military power. Massive starships hung in invisible fields outside panoramic windows. Artificial intelligences hummed softly in the background, and the air thrummed with quiet tension. Colonel Reyna Cross, commander of Earth's delegation, walked steadily through the crowd, flanked by her team. Behind her rumbled the Javelin, an ancient human tank, a relic from Earth's forgotten wars. The machine was nothing like the sleek weapons displayed by other species. Its armor was chipped, its paint worn, and its form bulky and old-fashioned. The sound of its heavy treads echoed faintly in the chamber, a steady reminder of its presence. The moment they entered, the atmosphere shifted. Eyes turned, voices lowered, then laughter. "Is that their weapon?" whispered a diplomat from the Sarnathi species, their tentacles twitching with amusement. A scrap heap on wheels. A tall, lithe figure with iridescent feathers stepped forward. A Xenex ambassador, known for their sharp tongue and pride in technological superiority. Their three eyes gleamed as they scoffed loudly. "Surely, Earth hasn't brought us a joke. This, Relic? It's a shame to waste space in the showcase." Reyna's jaw tightened, but her expression remained calm. She answered simply, "It's called Javelin. It has history, and it still works." Her words barely silenced the crowd. The galactic elite were dismissive, confident in their superiority. While humans had only recently earned a place among the respected races, they were still considered primitive, wild, unpredictable, and beneath the established powers. The delegation from Earth had arrived late, partly because of the tank's slow speed, partly because many had doubted the value of bringing it at all. The elites had expected Earth to bring sleek drones or laser rifles, modern tech that would blend in. Instead, the humans had insisted on the Javelin, a symbol of resilience and defiance. Reyna knew what the others didn't. Javelin was more than a machine. It was a living memory of Earth's darkest days, the wars against extinction, the long years fighting in trenches and dust storms, where every inch of ground was hard-won. It was proof that humanity survived not through the latest tech, but through sheer determination and grit. Around her, other species displayed weapons that could vaporize planets or bend spacetime. There were plasma swords that hummed with deadly energy, AI-driven drones that moved like ghosts, and starships capable of folding galaxies into wormholes. The human tank looked like a museum piece in comparison. Yet, Reyna could almost hear the machine whispering beneath her fingers, a low hum of old engines waiting to roar to life. "This old warhorse still remembers how to fight," she thought. As the summit began, the elites continued to mock and ignore the human relic. Delegates sipped exotic drinks, discussing strategies and alliances, hardly sparing the humans a glance. Yet, Reyna and her team remained focused. Every moment they waited was a chance to prove that underestimating humanity could be the galaxy's greatest mistake. She walked the length of Javelin's hull, her hand tracing scars and dents earned in battles long forgotten by the cosmos, but burned deeply into human memory. She saw strength in its bulk and resilience in its stubborn endurance. Other species relied on flashy new tech, but humans had a secret weapon: adaptability. The chamber's giant displays flickered with announcements, preparing the next segment of the summit, a demonstration of cutting-edge weaponry. The galactic elite prepared to show their power, confident that the humans and their relic would be forgotten by the end of the day. But Reyna knew better. She could feel the spark inside Javelin growing stronger. The true test was coming, and when it did, the galaxy would learn that even the oldest war machines could still make history. The Orion Concorde's grand chamber was filled with a mix of whispered speculation and outright ridicule. The human delegation sat quietly to one side, watching as the elite flaunted their advanced technologies. Among them were ships that could cloak in shadows, weapons that bent light to blind and disable, and artificial intelligences capable of predicting battle outcomes with terrifying accuracy. Yet all eyes inevitably drifted back to the Javelin, Earth's ancient tank. The machine sat like a stubborn relic from a forgotten era, its worn metal dull under the bright lights. Delegates from the galaxy's most powerful species exchanged amused glances, their expressions steeped in disbelief. How could anyone consider this scrap heap a threat? One whispered. Sarnethi nobles, their scales shimmering in disdain, openly mocked the tank's slow, cumbersome design. It's no more than a rolling coffin, sneered Corin, a high-ranking officer. The humans cling to obsolete technology because they lack imagination. Raina Cross felt the sting of their words but refused to show it. She stood beside Javelin, her posture calm and steady. There's more to this machine than you see, she said quietly, her voice carrying an undercurrent of steel. It's a survivor. The laughter only grew louder, but Raina's eyes scanned the room carefully. Somewhere beneath the mockery lay a seed of doubt. The Galactic elite, confident in their superiority, underestimated humanity. That was their mistake. As the demonstrations began, the aliens flaunted their power. Drones buzzed like swarms of deadly insects, plasma swords hummed with energy, and starships flashed across the sky outside, firing simulated volleys. Each display was more dazzling than the last, designed to impress and intimidate. In contrast, Javelin remained still, silent but imposing. Some began to whisper about the wisdom of Earth's choice, but most dismissed it as nostalgia, a sentimental attachment to a past that held no relevance in a future shaped by quantum weapons and hyperspace strikes. But behind the scenes, Raina's team worked tirelessly. Engineers and veterans adjusted controls, ran diagnostics, and whispered to the old machine as if it were an old friend. Briggs, a grizzled veteran who had fought in Earth's last great wars, sat behind the controls, fingers tracing worn levers with practiced ease. She's a tough one, he muttered, eyes gleaming with quiet pride. Old girl's got a heart of steel. Night fell over the summit, and the great hall emptied, leaving only a few guards in the human team. Raina stayed by Javelin, her hand resting gently on the tank's cold metal. You're more than a relic, she said softly. You're our story, our past, and if they ever need to learn what it means to survive, we'll be ready to show them. The machine seemed to hum in response, its ancient engines thrumming faintly as if waking from a long sleep. Unknown to the Galactic elite, the tank was far from useless. It held secrets, hidden capabilities buried beneath layers of old technology and forgotten codes. Meanwhile, across the chamber, the elite delegates exchanged bets on how long the humans would last if real combat broke out. None suspected that the day's peace would soon shatter, forcing them to reckon with the very thing they had scorned. For all their advanced tech, the Galactic elite had grown complacent. They viewed themselves as the pinnacle of evolution and warfare. But humanity's history was written in endurance, in adapting to impossible odds. Javelin was the embodiment of that spirit. As the summit settled into uneasy silence, the human relic waited patiently. The galaxy might scoff at it now, but soon the tides would turn. When the walls shook and the alarms blared, it would be the tank they mocked that became their shield. And Colonel Raina Cross would be there to remind them all. Never underestimate the power of a survivor. The night hung heavy over the Orion Concord summit. The grand hall, once filled with voices and laughter, now lay silent except for the faint hum of machinery and distant echoes of footsteps from the guards. Most of the elite delegates had retreated to their quarters, confident that their power was unchallenged and the summit safe. But in the shadows, a storm was gathering. Without warning, alarms blared throughout the complex. Red lights flashed and echoed against the polished walls, shattering the night's calm. The security system, considered nearly foolproof, struggled as unauthorized intruders broke through the outer defenses. The mercenaries, rogue soldiers known for ruthless efficiency, had chosen this moment to strike. Explosions tore through the corridors, sending clouds of dust and debris into the air. Panic spread quickly. The elite guards scrambled to mount defenses, but their weapons malfunctioned, energy shields flickering under relentless assault. Communications jammed, isolating factions from one another. In the midst of the chaos, Reyna Cross remained composed. She moved quickly to the Javelin, her trusted war machine. The ancient tank sat dormant, but she could feel the pulse beneath its armor, the dormant power waiting to be unleashed. The Galactic elite's fancy drones and starships failed to respond effectively. Their confidence crumbled as their advanced technology was overwhelmed by the mercenaries' brutal assault. They realized too late that their arrogance had left them vulnerable. Reyna's fingers worked swiftly, flipping switches and overriding safety locks. The Javelin's engines rumbled to life, the old machine awakening with a deep mechanical growl that echoed through the chamber. The tank's optics flickered on, scanning the darkened corridors. Briggs, the veteran who had once piloted the Javelin in Earth's wars, climbed into the driver's seat. His hands moved with practiced ease over the controls, fingers tracing movements remembered from battles long past. "We're not just sitting ducks," Briggs muttered, voice low and steady. "Time to remind them what this old girl can do." With a grinding roar, Javelin rolled forward, its heavy treads crushing debris as it moved. The mercenaries, caught off guard by the tank's sudden reactivation, scrambled to adjust. Laser fire sizzled against Javelin's thick armor, bouncing harmlessly off its surface. The tank's main cannon charged, glowing ominously. When it fired, the explosion shattered walls and sent shockwaves through the summit complex. One of the hovering gunships that had been raining fire down on the defenders was obliterated in a single blast. Gasps echoed from the remaining delegates, many of whom had fled to safer quarters. The Relic was no longer a joke. It was a weapon. Reyna led the charge on foot, moving alongside the tank with calm precision. She marked targets with a handheld device, relaying coordinates to Briggs and the tank's ancient combat eye, which had begun to reactivate alongside the machine. Despite being decades old, the eye was clever, adaptive, and relentless. It remembered every engagement, every tactic. It learned on the fly, predicting enemy moves and adjusting its fire with ruthless efficiency. The mercenaries faltered, their assault losing momentum as Javelin tore through their ranks. Its cannon boomed again and again, and countermeasures disrupted enemy targeting systems. The heavy tank moved with surprising speed and agility, a testament to the engineering that had designed it to endure even the worst of Earth's battlefields. Meanwhile, across the summit, the Galactic elite stared in disbelief. Their pride wounded, they watched as the ancient human machine turned the tide of a battle they thought would be a simple demonstration of their dominance. In the growing darkness, the human relic had become a beacon of hope, a symbol that even in the galaxy's most desperate hour, humanity's past held power. The mercenaries had underestimated the humans and their stubborn old warriors. The war was far from over, but the first blow had been struck. Reyna knew this was only the beginning. The summit was under siege, and the true test of the human spirit and their ancient machine was yet to come. The thunderous boom of Javelin's cannon shook the walls of the Orion Concord summit like a violent storm breaking the calm. The sound echoed far beyond the grand chamber, rattling windows and sending reverberations through the city beneath. For the first time, the Galactic elite saw the true power hidden within what they had so arrogantly dismissed as a human relic. As the ancient tank rolled forward, its massive treads crushed rubble and shattered debris with relentless force. Laser beams streaked toward it from the mercenary forces, but Javelin's thick armor absorbed the onslaught without faltering. Sparks flew as energy weapons glanced off its surface, powerless to pierce the decades-old steel forged in Earth's harshest battles. Inside the driver's seat, Briggs's weathered hands guided the controls with expert precision. Every move was deliberate, every shot calculated. The old veteran was a ghost from humanity's past, a man who had survived battles most others never saw. Now he was the heart and soul of this mechanical giant, breathing life into a machine long thought obsolete. Colonel Raina Cross followed closely on foot, scanning the battlefield with sharp eyes. She held a compact targeting device, marking enemy positions and relaying coordinates to Briggs and the tank's ancient AI system. The AI, once dormant and silent, now hummed with activity, analyzing threats and adjusting Javelin's weapons in real time. Suddenly, a mercenary gunship swooped low over the battlefield, its heavy plasma cannons unleashing the deadly barrage. It was a sleek, modern war machine designed for swift strikes and maximum destruction. But as it fired, Javelin's main cannon roared louder, a booming counter that rocked the sky. A single, perfectly aimed shot struck the gunship's engine. Flames erupted, and the craft spiraled out of control before crashing violently into the summit grounds. The impact sent shockwaves through the enemy ranks, breaking their momentum. The Galactic elite watched in stunned silence. The Relic was not just surviving, it was dominating. Other mercenary forces attempted to flank the tank, using cover and advanced weaponry to chip away at its defenses. But Javelin's AI anticipated their moves. It deployed countermeasures, smoke screens, electromagnetic pulses, and rapid-fire secondary guns hidden beneath its armored hull. The tank pushed forward, its heavy cannon unleashing shells that tore through enemy barricades and vehicles alike. Each shot was precise, devastating. The ground trembled beneath its advance, and for the first time, the Galactic elite questioned their assumptions. Raina's voice crackled over the comms to the surviving defenders. "Hold your positions. Support Javelin where you can. This machine is our anchor." Her calm leadership brought order amid the chaos. Alien soldiers, previously hesitant and fearful, found renewed courage as they rallied around the tank's unstoppable advance. Inside the summit's control room, the highest-ranking Galactic commanders huddled, their faces pale. "How is this possible?" one demanded. "That machine should be a relic. It shouldn't be able to stand against our best." Another grimly replied, "We underestimated them. Earth's technology and their spirit is not what it seems." Back on the battlefield, Briggs spotted movement on the horizon. A squad of heavily armed mercenaries attempting to breach the main chamber's defenses. Without hesitation, he aimed the tank's secondary weapons, releasing a hail of explosive rounds that scattered the attackers. Raina sprinted forward to secure a strategic point, signaling to nearby alien troops to advance with her. Together, they created a defensive perimeter, buying precious time for reinforcements to arrive. As the fight raged, it became clear. Javelin was more than a machine. It was a symbol of humanity's resilience, a reminder that strength wasn't measured by sleek designs or advanced tech alone, but by endurance, adaptability, and heart. The Galactic elite had scoffed at the human relic, but now, the tank's thunderous roar was the loudest sound on the battlefield, one that echoed with the promise that humanity was far from finished. The battle for the Orion Concord summit had shifted. What started as a chaotic attack by mercenaries now centered around the rumbling force of Javelin, the human relic that had come to life and defied expectations. The Galactic elite, once arrogant and dismissive, now watched in growing disbelief as the ancient tank tore through enemy ranks with unwavering determination. Inside the tank, Briggs remained calm, his hand steady on the controls. Years of combat experience flowed through his veins like a steady current, guiding every maneuver. The battle-hardened veteran understood the machine as if it were an extension of his own body. The Javelin was no longer just armor and firepower. It was a part of him. Outside, Raina Cross moved swiftly, coordinating defenses and pushing back the mercenaries. Despite the chaos, her voice was a beacon of calm over the comms, rallying disparate forces. "Hold your ground. Focus fire on their leaders. We break their command. We break their will." The mercenaries, confident and brutal, were now on the defensive. Their sophisticated weapons and starships were powerful, but their tactics had failed to anticipate the tenacity and resourcefulness of humans. Where the Galactic elite had relied on superior tech, Humans relied on grit, improvisation, and stubborn willpower. Reyna glanced toward Javelin as the tank crushed through a heavily fortified barricade. Thick smoke billowed, and the air was filled with the smell of scorched metal. The tank's cannon fired again, and a shockwave toppled a group of enemy soldiers trying to regroup. Suddenly, a pulse of interference spread through the area. Communications flickered, and the advanced targeting systems of many alien forces were temporarily blinded. It was an electromagnetic pulse, one of the Javelin's hidden tricks. The Galactic elite's forces faltered. Their reliance on precise technology was their weakness. The humans had prepared for this moment, equipping the Relic with unexpected upgrades carefully concealed beneath its weathered exterior. Inside the tank's cockpit, Briggs smiled grimly. "That's the trick," he muttered. "Old war machines have secrets." As the pulse continued, mercenary weapons sputtered and failed. The defenders seized the opportunity, launching counterattacks that pushed the enemy back. Reyna activated a nearby comm station, broadcasting a message to the entire summit. "This is Colonel Reyna Cross. The mercenary assault will not succeed. Stand with us. Fight for survival. Together, we can protect the future." The response was immediate. Soldiers from various factions, inspired by humanity's courage, joined forces. The once divided and scattered defenders formed a united front, rallying behind the human tank that had become a symbol of hope. Despite the chaos, the Galactic elite's leaders gathered in a secure chamber. Their confidence was shattered, replaced by urgent debate. How did humanity prepare for this? One commander demanded. "Their technology is primitive compared to ours." "Primitive, yes," another replied, "but underestimated. They've survived where others would have fallen. Their strength is in more than machines. It's in their spirit." Back on the front lines, the battle raged with renewed intensity. Javelin's cannon boomed, and its secondary guns swept through enemy squads with lethal accuracy. Every shot told a story of a species that refused to surrender. Reyna fought alongside her allies, directing troops and identifying enemy weaknesses. She had no illusions about the challenges ahead, but she also knew that this moment marked a turning point. The Galactic elite had underestimated humans for too long. As the dust settled in some areas, Reyna and Briggs shared a brief glance. No words were needed. The tank and its crew had become the linchpin of the defense. Against all odds, the human Relic was holding the line. The summit might have been intended as a display of power, but it had turned into a battle for survival. And the human spirit was roaring louder than ever. The battle's fury had shaken the Orion Concord summit to its core. Walls that once gleamed with polished metal now bore the scars of countless blasts, and smoke curled in thick clouds through shattered corridors. Yet amidst the ruin, the human Relic, Javelin, continued its relentless advance, an iron giant moving steadily forward. Inside the tank's cockpit, Briggs felt the vibrations beneath him, the rhythmic pulse of the ancient machine's heartbeat. It was more than a vehicle, it was a living memory. Every dent, every scar on Javelin's surface told a story of survival, sacrifice, and determination. Reyna moved alongside the tank, her gaze sharp as she surveyed the battlefield. The mercenaries had been pushed back, but the fight was far from over. Fresh waves of attackers surged forward, desperate to reclaim lost ground. As the tank barrel swung to meet new threats, Reyna's mind flickered to the tank's origin. The old Earth wars that had forged this machine. It had once rolled across battlefields scorched by fire and death, a symbol of humanity's indomitable will. In those desperate times, soldiers had trusted it to shield them from annihilation. Now it carried that legacy into the far reaches of space, proving that history still mattered. Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the ground beneath them. The elite mercenary leader, a towering figure clad in advanced battle armor, appeared ahead, rallying his forces for a final push. His voice cut through the chaos, a chilling command that sent waves of enemies surging forward with renewed fury. Reyna tightened her grip on her weapon. "We can't let them break through." she said, determination burning in her eyes. "Javelin, hold your ground." Briggs nodded, his hand steady as he guided the tank into position. The machine's cannon charge, glowing brighter with every passing second. When it fired, the explosion was deafening, obliterating the front line of attackers and creating a wall of fire. But the mercenaries were relentless. They adapted quickly, launching specialized assault drones designed to infiltrate and sabotage the tank. One managed to latch onto Javelin's rear, its claws digging into the armor as it released a pulse designed to disable internal systems. Inside the cockpit, alarms blared. Briggs' hands flew over controls, working to isolate the damage and maintain control. "Old girl, don't fail me now," he muttered, sweat beading on his brow. Reyna raced to the rear of the tank, accompanied by a small team. She moved with purpose, rifle ready, eyes scanning for the hidden threats. Spotting the drone, she raised her weapon and fired a precise shot, sending the attacker crashing to the ground in sparks and smoke. The moment was brief but vital, a reminder that technology, no matter how advanced, could be countered with skill and quick thinking. Back inside Javelin, Briggs regained control, systems humming steadily once more. "That's better," he said with a grin. "Nothing gets past us." As the battle dragged on, the human forces rallied around their relic. The Galactic elite's arrogance had fractured their unity, and whispers spread among their ranks about the unexpected strength of the humans and their old warhorse. Reyna's voice cut through the noise again, rallying her troops. "Remember what we fight for. This tank is not just steel and fire. It's the spirit of every human who ever stood against impossible odds." The tank rumbled forward, its presence a living testament to resilience. It wasn't just the technology that made Javelin formidable, it was the history it carried, the lives it had protected, and the hope it inspired. In that moment, as explosions flared and battle cries echoed, the Galactic elite understood something they had long forgotten. Sometimes, the greatest power lies not in the newest weapon, but in the echoes of the past. The battle for the Orion Concord summit was reaching its breaking point. The once impregnable fortress now echoed with the sounds of gunfire, explosions, and desperate shouts. The Galactic elite's forces, though vast and well-equipped, were faltering in the face of an unexpected foe, the human relic and those who rallied behind it. Javelin moved with a relentless purpose, its heavy treads crushing the shattered ground beneath. Briggs, steady and focused, guided the tank through a maze of rubble and burning debris. Each step was a defiant drumbeat in the symphony of war. Reyna Cross ran alongside the tank, her eyes sharp and scanning for threats. The defenders, once divided by distrust and fear, had begun to unite under her command. Alien soldiers, inspired by the humans' resilience, fought with renewed vigor. The summit was no longer just a battleground. It was a symbol of resistance. Despite the chaos, a new energy pulsed through the defenders. Word spread quickly. The relic was more than a machine. It was a beacon. Even those who had doubted humanity's strength now stood shoulder to shoulder with them. The mercenary leader's voice crackled over the battlefield, barking orders for a final, desperate assault. His troops surged forward, pushing with fury born of desperation, but the defenders held fast. Javelin's cannon blazed again and again, the blasts tearing through enemy ranks and sending shockwaves that knocked opponents off their feet. The tank's secondary weapons swept the battlefield, felling enemies with precision and speed. Briggs shouted over the roar of battle, his voice full of determination. "Keep pushing. They think this old tank is finished. Let's show them what it really means to be human." Reyna's gaze locked with Briggs, and in that moment, unspoken understanding passed between them. This was more than a fight for survival. It was a declaration that humanity would not be forgotten, no matter the odds. Amidst the fighting, Reyna spotted a squad attempting to flank the defenders, aiming to cut off their retreat and seize control of the summit's power core, a critical node that could decide the battle's outcome. "Briggs, we got to stop them," she shouted into her comm. The tank adjusted course, barreling toward the flanking squad with unstoppable force. The mercenaries barely had time to react before Javelin's heavy cannon fired, obliterating their advance and halting their momentum. But the battle was far from over. As the sun began to rise over the distant horizon, casting long shadows across the battlefield, the defenders gathered their strength for what could be the final push. The Galactic elite's forces, shaken and broken, hesitated, their confidence eroding. Reyna stood tall beside Javelin, her voice ringing out clear and commanding. This is our moment. Together, we fight, not just for today, but for every future we want to build. The Relic is our strength. The human spirit is unstoppable. The words echoed through the summit, reaching every soldier, every pilot, every fighter. A tide was rising, not just of weapons and firepower, but of hope. The Galactic elite knew they faced a foe unlike any before. The Relic was more than a weapon. It was a symbol of everything they had overlooked: resilience, unity, and unyielding courage. And as the rising tide of defenders surged forward, the future of the Orium Concord, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. The dawn's early light spilled over the shattered summit, casting long shadows on the battlefield. The air was thick with smoke and the sharp scent of scorched metal. For hours, the battle had raged, unyielding, brutal, and relentless. The Galactic elite's forces, once so confident, now struggled under the unbreakable assault of the defenders led by the human Relic. Javelin's treads ground steadily forward, each movement a declaration of defiance. Briggs guided the tank with a calm born from years of experience, the ancient machine responding like a trusted old friend. The cannon's barrel still glowed faintly with residual energy, ready for the next shot. Reyna Cross moved swiftly across the battlefield, her voice steady as she coordinated the final push. The defenders, aliens, humans, and former mercenaries alike, fought as one, their spirits lifted by the legacy of the human Relic. "Hold the line," Reyna shouted, her voice cutting through the din. "This is our chance to end this fight and reclaim the summit." The mercenary leader, sensing the tide turning, ordered a desperate final assault. His troops surged forward, a wave of armor and firepower intent on crushing the defenders once and for all. But Javelin was ready. With a thunderous roar, the tank unleashed its full fury. The main cannon fired, a massive shell crashing into the enemy's front line. Explosions erupted, sending debris and bodies flying. Secondary weapons swept the battlefield, targeting vulnerable points in the enemy formation. Briggs maneuvered the tank with precision, anticipating the mercenaries' moves and countering each advance. The ancient AI within Javelin worked seamlessly with Briggs, calculating trajectories and deploying defenses that baffled even the most advanced enemies. Reyna led a squad to secure the summit's central control hub, the heart of the complex. Its capture would cripple the mercenaries' ability to coordinate and turn the battle's momentum decisively in the defenders' favor. Fierce firefights erupted within the narrow corridors leading to the hub, but Reyna's team pressed forward. With every step, they dismantled enemy resistance, clearing the path for reinforcements. As the tank fired again, the final barrier protecting the summit's core shattered. A massive hole blown through the wall, exposing the control room to the defenders' assault. Inside the control room, the Galactic Elite's commanders realized their defeat was imminent. Their communications were disrupted, their forces scattered. The arrogance that had once blinded them now served only to hasten their downfall. Reyna and her squad stormed the control hub, securing it with swift efficiency. The mercenary leader's voice crackled over the comms, rage and desperation mingling in his words. "You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." Reyna's reply was calm and resolute. "This is just the beginning. Humanity has faced impossible odds before, and we always rise. The Relic may be old, but our spirit is eternal." Outside, Javelin stood tall amidst the ruins, a towering symbol of resilience, The galactic elite had scoffed at the human relic, dismissing it as obsolete and powerless. Yet here it was, the key to their defeat and a reminder that strength was more than just technology. The summit was theirs. As the dust settled and the survivors began to regroup, a new chapter opened in the galaxy's history. The human relic had blown a hole not just in the wall of the summit, but in the barrier of doubt and dismissal that had long surrounded humanity. The galactic elite would think twice before underestimating them again. And as Reyna looked toward the rising sun, she knew one truth above all. In a universe of endless stars, humanity's light would never be dimmed.